Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today, happy to have him back, Alex Klenman, President CEO, Azincourt Energy, trades in Canada under AAZ, and for friends in the US under AZURF. Look, guys, if you believe in the future of renewable energy and all the different alternatives we have out there, we know that nuclear is a big one and uranium is a big component of that. Azincourt is developing critical energy, alternative energy projects for uranium, with two core projects in the Athabasca Basin of Saskatchewan, and either one of them is capable of delivering Canada's next uranium discovery. That's how serious, and more than just lip service, the company raised $8 million last year from 20 plus institutional investors. So it's not just the company thinking that. A lot of big, smart people think that's possible also. Now, why Azincourt? Well, let's talk about the macro side. Uranium has been a bull market for a while now. It's trading close to $50 spot right now, which is just off its $6 high, but way off where we've seen it before. And that's because, as we know, the world needs clean energy. And nuclear power right now, worldwide capacity is increasing with about 50 reactors under construction. So that's causing a bit of a supply constraint there, as you can imagine, hence the higher prices. Why is the company in Saskatchewan? Well, uranium mining and production has taken place for over 40 years there. And it's got 10 to 100 times world average uranium grades that make discovery feasible. It's pretty much where you want to be. And the company's two projects are the East Preston, where they've identified uranium, and the Hatchet Lake uranium project, which is on a structural corridor that hosts the majority of known high-grade uranium deposits and all of Canada's operating uranium mines. And that's the headline that we're going to talk about. Azincourt updates exploration plans for both East Preston and Hatchet Lake. Alex, welcome back, my friend. I know there's a bit of a mouthful, but you've got so much going on.
I appreciate it, George. Always great to get on with you and discuss all things Azincourt. We're going to be busy.
But before Azincourt, something really I want to talk about on the macro side. Europe is heading into what we all see now is most likely not even a potential, but a probable energy crisis as a result of Russia shutting off natural gas. As a result, Germany, probably being the biggest, going to take the biggest hit, is now considering extending the life of their nuclear plants that they were going to shut down at the end of the year. What's been the impact on the short term in terms of maybe pricing or just overall, overall view of uranium? But more importantly, what's that doing for the long-term view of nuclear as an alternative?
Yeah, no, listen, it's not surprising. Europe has always had more of an anti-nuclear bent to it. But everybody knows where this is headed. Nuclear energy is a safe alternative. Yes, you have to be careful with storage, and you have long lives of spent uranium and things like that, but that's all manageable. But it doesn't surprise me that we're headed in that direction. But I think really hasn't manifested in any great way in terms of spot. It may have bolstered it or strengthened it, but we're not seeing any massive rise. But I'll tell you what it is doing. It's helping bring sentiment back into the space. We lost it with the broad market over the overall market turn. The uranium equities got caught in the slide, and we're not immune to that. But obviously, when you have something like this in the headlines, it helps generate that sentiment that we all need. It's a huge factor in the markets.
And I've got to assume there are countries out there who are themselves looking at each other right now, governments saying to themselves, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't want to be held hostage one day, whatever the energy source is. Maybe we should be taking a closer look at nuclear ourselves. I know that's not an immediate reaction, but is it fair to say that you've probably got a lot of governments thinking, hold on, we need to really reconsider and really start to think about nuclear hard again?
Yeah, well, listen, it's been trending that way for several years now, and I think ultimately that's where we're going to be. Supply-demand scenario with existing builds and existing mines and existing utilities. Obviously, there's a deficit. We're facing a deficit in raw material. So, exploration, like what we do, is critical to renewing and getting more supply into the market. And I think the the bullish feelings that we see, the bullish prognostications, if you will, aren't far off. We're going to be in a good market here for uranium for years to come.
So on that note, you just announced your exploration plans for the next 12 months. You've got cash in the bank, you've got supportive institutions. You're really going to go full blast. We'll talk about each of Hatchet Lake and East Preston, but overall, what's ahead for Azincourt? What's the big picture plan with this exploration?
Yeah, listen, we're active explorers. As you mentioned, we're funded, so we're going to put that money in the ground. That's where the investors want to see the money go, and that's where it's going. So we've got 2 projects, as you mentioned. We're going to be drilling both in the next 12 months, and we're heading towards what we feel is impactful discovery in not only our East Preston project, which we've spoken to a lot in the past, but also Hatchet Lake, which will be this will be our first drill program coming up at Hatchet.
Yeah, so let's talk about Hatchet Lake. You're planning, so you're planning on drilling for the first time this fall. What should investors know that you like about this project? I mean, I kind of alluded to it a little bit. It's in just a great real estate, great location.
Yeah.
But a little more detail from you. You're the chief
Sure.
honcho there. What are you loving about it? Why are you guys so high on it?
Well, we picked it up. It's an option. It's an earn-in option agreement with Valor Metals, who are solid partners in the deal. But we're moving. We wanted something outside of our East Preston project. We wanted a second project. So finding one on the Wollaston corridor, which is that, as you mentioned, where all the production is on that northeast side of the basin, the eastern side of the basin. This is just outside the perimeter. So again, shallow targets. It's why we want to be on the perimeter. You don't have the sandstone cover that you have, in the basin proper. The targets are shallower. It's cheaper to work. But the work that had been done on this project by companies like Hathor/Rio Tinto was all done prior to knowledge that's been gained in the last decade. And it's changed the discoveries over the last 10 to 15 years have changed how you chase alteration and mineralization and how you chase deposits. So, we're going to be the first ones to go in there and drill it with the knowledge that's been gained. We're going to do a little bit of work prior to putting drills in the ground, but we're going to probably do a $1.5 million drill program there this fall. And there is high grade mineralization on the project ground, on the claim block.
I was about to ask that. What do you know about it so far?
Yeah. Well, there's been samples taken up to about 2.5% uranium, which is very high grade. I mean, the world average is 0.2. It's one of the reasons why you want to be in the Athabasca. You've got chance at economic grade. So we're going in. We're going to do a $1 million pass minimum, and we're gonna poke around in some of these zones that haven't had a lot of work, but are showing the right criteria: the conductive packages, high grade mineralization at surface. There are several radioactive boulders with good numbers on the project. We think that those boulders are sourced on the project ground itself. Erosion being erosion, things move over time. But we think the source of that mineralization is present at Hatchet, and we're gonna give it a good pass.
And historical work has been done there, right?
Yes.
This is not just you and me are just found a piece of land. Let's see if we can find some uranium in there. There's been great. Talk to us a little bit about the kind of historical work that's already been done.
Yeah, there hasn't been much, but enough over the years where there's been some geophysics, some geochemistry, and a little bit of drilling, and there's been sniffs. Again, Rio Tinto Hathor was probably the big operator back in the day. But remember something: outside the basin itself, there wasn't a lot of action until we started to see some deposits being discovered in the last 10 to 15 years outside the basin on the perimeter. So that now opened up ground that was previously underexplored. So that's really where this project lies. It's in an underexplored section, very close to production, in a great place geologically speaking, and it already is showing mineralization. So where's the deposit hiding? That's our job as an exploration company. Get in there
and before I move on to East Preston, something I like how you've alluded a couple times to. We're going to run $1 million to $1.5 million program in there, and you say that with such confidence because right now finances are tough to come by for small cap companies, but you've got a pretty strong balance sheet, right? I think everyone should know that, and you've got the money to do what you got to do.
Yeah, everything I'm talking to today is paid or funded. We've got somewhere near 11 or 12 million in the bank. I mean that we've got money coming in from our partners, and as you mentioned, look, for pure exploration as we are, it's pretty rare to have a balance sheet like that and to have institutional support like we have. So we've mentioned that many times before. I always speak to that. That's a vote of confidence for what we're doing, and also a vote of confidence for the prospectivity of the projects. I mean, the institutional funds aren't going to invest in moose pasture. So we've got good projects with great criteria that you want to see prior to discovery. And listen, one thing, we don't know where the markets are going. Part of me does get nervous knowing that we're committing to spend $5 or $6 million on exploration in the next 12 months. But at the same time, I'm pretty confident that if we go back to the institutions, if we need to raise more money later on, we'll be able to do it. The projects are good. We're doing things the right way. We're spending the money in the ground, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's great third-party validation. It doesn't guarantee anything, but
Correct.
I've always said sometimes to investors when I'm speaking to investors, and I say, look, if a number of institutions come into a deal with a few $1,000,000, right? You've got to figure they've done their due diligence and they like the risk reward profile. It's not a
Sure.
guarantee, nothing's a guarantee, but they
Right.
like, so that's almost like great due diligence for everyone at home saying, hey, if these institutions stepped up with an $8
Yeah.
million raise at
Yeah.
the end of last year, the last quarter, then there's got to be a great deal of confidence. So
It's
let's
true.
talk. Oh, good, good.
No, it's true. Listen, having that support is critical. We're very grateful to the funds. I mean, there's 28 different funds, small funds to big funds in the deal, and I think many of them will continue to support us as if we move forward in a progressive way as we are.
So East Preston, I would say that's your flagship right
Yeah.
now. You control the 70% interest. It's 25,000, over 25,000 hectare project. You've identified, you complete a winter drill program. You've identified uranium. Let's recap that just a little bit. How happy
Sure.
are with what happened during the winter
Mhm.
program? Where are you going next?
Yeah. No, listen. Exploration is about discovery, and what we lose sight of sometimes is how that works in an incremental fashion. Some people want instant gratification. They want that drill hole to blast. They want blast off immediately. Sometimes it takes time. And now listen, East Preston is a big target. We've got 30 kilometers of conductive trends that we know of. There are other trends on the property that have had very little exploration done so far. So in the main trends that we're poking around in now, we come up with about 1,700 meters of alteration zones. Now, those alteration zones are critically important. Alteration acts as a halo around mineralization. Typically, if you find alteration and you start to get into the clays, we're talking about hematite alteration. When you start to get into the clays, you're probably getting closer to a deposit or mineralization in an impactful way. So this past winter, we drilled into new zones that had never seen a drill hole before. You extended at a 5,000 meters. We got 1,700 meters of alteration, which is quite a ratio.
Yeah, for everyone
And
at home, is that a great radio? Because a lot of us at home don't know. Is that
sure,
how's it
it's a
going?
lot. It's a
Good.
lot. It's almost too much. And I
It can never
and
be
what I
too much,
mean
but
is, listen, a small zone, 200-meter zone. All right, we're vectored into that zone. We're gonna go hard into that
right.
zone. 1,700 meters gives us more targets than we perhaps need. But the bigger the better. The more the better. Because somewhere in there we're gonna find something. We hope to find something. I should say. I need to be compliant, George. Always remember that I need to be compliant. So we're listen. It's a lot of ground, and we're looking at the geochemistry. We're looking at the elevated uranium levels that we got in the drill holes. We have evidence. We had evidence prior that uranium was in the fluids moving around on the property. More importantly, now this past program confirmed that that was happening in the alteration. So that's a really good sign. Somewhere within that alteration, we're hoping it pooled. So we're looking at the areas that pooling generally occurs. Those are in the bends or the breaks or the folds in the conductive packages. Somewhere in there, where those structures change and turn, we're hoping to find it. So we're going to go back in with better knowledge than we had prior to last year's program. And, we're optimistic that we're going to run into it sooner rather than later. But sometimes it's a lengthy process. I mean, you could pop down 150, 200 holes. What we don't want to do is walk away from a project with so much prospectivity, so much going for it, and so many targets to drill, Hopefully it happens soon, but listen, patience is always rewarded with good exploration.
Well, most of the time, exploration takes time.
Yeah,
We all hear about a big drill result somewhere, but that drill result wasn't the first one. It
no,
comes from, or results, right? It's not the
right,
first one usually.
exactly,
It comes from you did the work, you hone in, you hone in, you hone in, bang.
right,
So yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
if
and
every
especially with East Preston where there's so much ground. I mean, it's a lengthier process than some people are willing to go through, but others know the game and they're happy about the progress we're making.
well, let's talk about that. If everything goes as planned, right? And look, it's whether if you're a football team, you have a plan in place,
Yeah,
and you think if you implement this plan, here's the result you're looking to get at the
yeah,
end, right?
yeah.
So, but that's no guarantee. So I want to make sure we say that again and again here. But if everything goes as planned on this upcoming winter drill program, what do you expect to have to what more knowledge, what would you expect to have discovered at East Preston if
Sure.
everything goes kind of as expected?
Yeah, it's about incremental improvements, and every time we've done work on the project, we're moving the project forward in a positive way. That's the thing, and we'd like more of that. And I think that would manifest itself in greater uranium numbers, higher numbers, more numbers in more places, and really finding a zone. Listen, we're drilling 200, 300, 400 meters. Those holes are 300, 400 meters apart. Where you can find a 200 million pound deposit that literally has a 90-meter footprint at surface. So we have to, we're honing in on that, right? So we're going to have to continue to tighten up the grids, tighten up the space between drill holes. Somewhere in those zones, we're hoping to find the sweet spot. But again, what's success? Moving the project forward incrementally. Sure, we'd love the home run. Every explorer wants the home run. It's part of the chase. It's part of the excitement of what we do. You never know what that next drill hole is going to pull. But realistically speaking, and being pragmatic about it, you got to poke holes in the right places, and you have to vector towards that discovery, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's how value is created at the end of the day, right? It doesn't mean that investors have to wait 3 years, like ballpark. What would you what for projects of these sizes? Do you think that for us at home, for the benefit of all, does it take 2-3 years of work until you got a really really good idea what you got there? First of
Yeah,
all,
well, yeah, more or less. I mean, listen, we've been working it for several years, but it keeps getting better every time we do the work. So, I mean, listen, we have the funding. We could double the size of the drill program we did last year, but we're trying to do it in an appropriate way. We've got 2 rigs going full time. Those rigs were busy. We have First Nations and local communities to consult. We have to be cognizant of their needs and their wishes. So, we can't just go in and blow 10 million in one drill program and hope, we find it. Logistically speaking, we've got to do it the way we're doing it. And I think 5,000, 6,000 meters per drill season is a good number and a good way to get there. Keep in mind, it was somewhere around 200 drill holes at MacArthur before they found the big one. So, and sometimes there's plenty of stories where they drilled over here and 10 or 15 meters to the east of that drill hole was the discovery. But so you've got to be, cognizant of that. And we are, and I think we're patient, but there is a timeline on things. I mean, 10 years from now, I certainly hope we're not waiting for that big discovery at East Preston. I mean, I'd like to see it tomorrow. I'd like to see it this winter. Our chances are better today than they ever were. The project has been advanced that much more since we took over and started putting holes in the ground. So yeah, we're trending in the right direction at East Preston.
yeah, and again, go back to the institutional investors. They agree with you. This isn't
Yeah,
just Alex wishing and hoping and throwing a prayer out there. You and your team have put together a plan.
yeah,
You've identified we need to identify. You got a plan of attack, and the market that likes these kind of projects, right? Uranium clearly likes the game plan.
yeah. No, listen, our VP exploration, Trevor Perkins, has had several discoveries under his belt, big ones. So he knows what he's doing. And since he's gotten involved, obviously things are moving in a really, really effective way. And the funds, when we have calls with the funds and we go through the technical information of the project, I should say, when Trevor goes through the technical stuff, it resonates with them. They can see what Trevor sees, and what obviously their due diligence, as you mentioned, is top notch. It's thorough, and it's detailed. So if they like it, we're headed in the right direction.
Last question for you, going back to a bit of a macro and talk about sentiment. The markets have not have had a tough first 6 months, and I'm talking not just in small cap. Netflix down 70%, Shopify down 60%, Tesla down 55%, and on and on and on. So obviously that's happened in the small cap space as well. What's your I don't want to call it advice, but what's your experience tell you to share with investors in these kind of environments? And keep in mind, for everyone at home, it's not overly critical to Azincourt right now, because it's not as if you're ready to exit the company, ready to create an exit plan right now. It'd be great if everything was much better, of course. But how do you manage shareholder expectations in these kind of environments?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth with a lot of investors and shareholders over the last 4 or 5 months. And there was a ton of doom and gloom. I mean, people the sky was falling, So what I've been telling people all along is, I think the easiest thing is to look where we're concerned, where Azincourt's say our evaluation has decreased, but it hasn't decreased in an isolated way. It's decreased right along with the broad markets, as you know. So if you look at charts of the NASDAQ and the TSX and the Dow and everything else, you're going to see a very similar chart pattern to what many equities are showing today. And that's a downward slide from last fall, even January to now. Just we're going south. But we didn't do it in an isolated way. We did it with everyone else. So it's not what we're doing is affecting our market cap. It's sentiment. And I always like to talk about sentiment. And we've just had a little bump in our eval over the last a couple of weeks ago. We were trading at our cash value, which is insanity, considering how much money we put in the ground at East Preston, right? But now we bumped from that, but nothing but sentiment, a little bit of optimism in the market was enough to bump us 20-25%. So I think we're going to see more and more of that, as you mentioned. If the fall and the catalysts we're looking at ahead, the market starts to take off, our evaluation, Azincourt's evaluation, will rise simply in that alone. Sentiment will do that. Obviously, we need to do the work. A good drill hole will help, but we're moving in the right direction. And I think if we get that market support, our evaluation will get back to a more normal level. Right now, we feel it's cheap. But you know it, and I know it, George. If you get a CEO that says their evaluation is spot on, let me know.
Yeah, exactly. So take that, and that's why we tell everybody at home, you've got to make your own decisions based on your financial condition, talking to your financial advisor, your partners, everybody. But again, Alex, what I like is that of course, you're the CEO and you're supposed to be optimistic about what's going forward. But I just like the fact that institutions like your plan as well, and they're betting on you. Again, it doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but when institutions are betting on you and they're giving you their heart, look, I don't care how big the institutions are, when they all kick in about $8 million or so, and even more than that, perhaps. Yeah, that's a big deal, right? No one likes to lose money for
no. And listen, it hasn't been easy. I did a conference a couple months back and spoke to several funds, and my question to each one of the funds was, has your investment thesis in the uranium space changed at all since the markets have turned? And to a fund, they said no, not at all. In fact, if you need more money, we're willing to write checks. Now, it wasn't let's say the mania of last fall, but certainly they're in the game. They understand the broad market sell-off is not really a reflection on the space itself, but they haven't changed. And we know that some funds have sold a little bit over this time, but when a fund has, say, 60 million shares of your deal and they sell 1 million shares in a month, that's just a rebalancing. That's an accounting exercise. That's nothing negative against the company or the space itself.
Alex, thanks for joining us, man. It's always great talking to you because you've got a great track record of success. You've got fantastic experience. And more importantly, for the purpose of this call, Azincourt has got the balance sheet, it's got the projects, it's got the leadership team. You mentioned the company's chief geologist has had wins, big wins before.
Yeah.
So that's all you can ask for in a small cap exploration company. And now, this is where the fingers crossed comes in. Can't wait to see what's going to happen with these upcoming drill programs, and can't wait to have you back when it starts. And I'm sure hopefully they'll be, well, hopefully we won't be waiting until the results. We'll have more to talk about, during as is all happening.
Now listen, always happy to be on. I've got always something to speak to and about. We've got great projects. My best advice to our shareholders and the people watching is give it time. The markets will return. We know where we're headed. A good exploration company like Azincourt's always welcome in a good portfolio. So keep an eye on us, and happy to answer any questions anybody might have anytime.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Alex Klenman, he's president and CEO at Azincourt Energy, trades in Canada under AAZ, and for friends in the US under AZURF. To start your due diligence, get to the company's profile page on the GORCOM, where we've got a really nice laid out, each of the projects, everything you need to know about the company to get that good 1,000-foot overview. And then for real deep dive details, head over to the company's website, do your deep dive due diligence. If you believe, and I don't know how you don't, in the future of renewable energy, and believe that nuclear, therefore uranium, is going to play a role in that, then you've got to do your due diligence with Azincourt. And hopefully today you discovered your next great small cap resource company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.